named and driven to victory by Rod Junkwitz. That's the first start and win this year for Velmite, trotting the mile in 2:08 and 2/5. It's official. Number 5, Velmite, the race winner. Number 6, Clarissa, finished second, and number 7, Gay Caballero, was third. The official rundown on the third race. Number 1, Arbore Louis, was 5th. Number 2, Daisy Maycan, finished 7th and was placed 6th. Number 3, Yours 2, 4th. Number 4, Second Notice, finished 6th, was placed 7th. 4 lap on break up the wire. Number 5, Velmite, the race winner. Number 6, Clarissa, finished 3rd and was placed 2nd. Number 7, Gay Caballero, finished 2nd, was placed 3rd. 4 lap on break up the wire. Number 8, Omelette, finished 9th. And number 9, Startling Night, was 8th. Top down, your program should read 5, 6, 4, 7, 1, 2, 3, 9, and 8 on the bottom, 2:08 and 2/5. If you had the Quail combination of number 5, Velmite, coupled with number 6, Clarissa, Quail of 5 and 6 returns $40.20. Mutuals on the third race. Number 5, Velmite, returned $11, $5.60 and $4.20. Number 6, Clarissa, $6 and $4.20. And number 7, Gay Caballero, $4.60 to show.
Now I'll keep listening.
And there you have it, friends, another feature presentation brought to you from beautiful and exciting Raceway Park in Toledo. Previously sponsored by Kiefer Kinky Cake Products, but tonight brought to you by Agner Postal Service. Yes, Bob Agner's motto, better late than never. For rapid mail and parcel delivery, call UPS. For the unexpected, call Agner. Agner promises you delays, breakage, and excessive charges on pretty commemorative. No need for postal insurance with Bob Agner's service. Yes, friends, the last claim was settled in 1948. Depend on Bob Agner's postal service, a dog's best friend since yesteryear.
I like people's kinky product.
So who was that guy? Or how'd you...
Kiefer. Yeah. He had to get that in.
That was good. So
I got
Did he give you the emergency wedding bands?
after you see this next one, I got to tell you something about this last race.
Well, I'll tell you what, this next one, I think you should just listen on your own. It's really hard to hear, so I think you should just tell us. This is a radio interview, and the guy asked you, so it's somebody from Raceway Park, but it's really hard to understand. But he asks you to tell about your race, one of your first races.
How you got started.
How you got started in it. But he says, tell the story about when you turned in front of the guy.
Oh.
So you just tell it, and then, because you really can't hear it very well. So.
Well, that's before they had the starting gates. And you'd go up. Half the horses would go up one side and half the other, and the starter had a megaphone that he'd tell you when to turn them. And if somebody was ahead of nobody could score out ahead of the number 1 horse, you know. And if they did, there'd be a recall. So anyhow, this was my first drive, and we had a recall. When they all went up and turned, when they started to turn, I just wheeled and turned too. And when we were going back to try again, this one old guy drove up beside me, and I could see him today with a big chew of tobacco in his mouth. He says, "Son, how would you like to live to be as old as I am?" And I was all butterflies, and I said, "I hope so," or something. He said, "Well, let me tell you something. You turn in front of me like you did the last time, and you ain't never gonna make it.
But
Was that the one you were talking about?
that's
Yeah,
exactly,
that's on
yeah.
there, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you really couldn't. It's better to
It's
hear it from
difficult
you.
to hear, yeah.
Yeah. But he was saying that you were such a storyteller, so it must have been the announcer at Raceway Park had a radio show too or something and called you for an interview.
Ron Sobsack.
And you really couldn't even understand. Yeah.
I talked to Ron Sobsack on the phone last night.
Really?
I listen to him on the radio about every day.
Yeah.
Okay, well this was. And what's you guys just try to listen to it on your own because it's so hard, but it's.
He told me he took his he's got a full-time job at this new casino,
Oh yeah?
and he said
So,
this is just my part-time job now. They just race Saturday and Sunday nights there.
Is he going to give up the DJ?
The what?
The DJ job at 93.5?
I don't know.
He's on the
I
radio.
couldn't talk to him very much because he was between races.
Oh.
And, but he told me he took a full-time job at the new casino there in Toledo.
He was still listed on their website last time I got on.
So when we were listening to these, I really didn't remember that you, or I didn't know that you drove. So, I mean, drove. Like I said, I thought you stopped after I was born or something. So how long did you drive?
Oh, I
Or
drove
how-
quite a few. But now, like Maximilian, he was undefeated, and I didn't believe in changing, as Jerry was getting along good with him. And then he started going for the big money, and there's no way that I was gonna mess up. I drove the ones that needed help, and when they were racing good, then I put a professional driver on.
Got ya.
But I got this book down here that you asked about if I drove.
Yeah.
Shows reservation where I drove him several times. Like this is a.
I don't know if I've seen this.
Oh yeah.
We're going to lose our audience
Oh.
if we get sidetracked.
No. Well, I think our
This is all part of it.
That's
All
it,
part
isn't
of
it?
the program.
yeah.
Like here. That's Maximilian. I never drove him.
Yeah, we can. The only thing on there left is that interview, and
We just got it right there.
Here's
Yeah.
reservation.
We got it kind of live.
Let's see, I drove in here.
Well,
And then I drove him down here.
you guys were staying at
Yeah.
Adams or Nita? You got a decent bed up there?
I'm one with him there. And then
Stop it.
this race right here,
what's that warehouse you're
that would have been a new record for him, and I just missed by a nose.
Well,
But that was, and they gave him a new record there, see? That's,
oh.
this is,
You're a delicious gal. That wedding must
That's
have
an
done
interesting
you
book.
some good.
here's
glad I came home. I did not sleep at all.
Val Knight here.
I had a headache on the line. Then I came home. I took aspirin.
There was 22 3-year-old trotters that year,
I could not.
2 divisions.
Like, we didn't go to bed. I started watching TV.
Yeah.
I didn't try to go to bed till 2.
And
then I woke
this
up
year, I
at
think there
5
were only
or
4 horses.
And then I went back to bed till
That
about
year there were
10.
22. But this has got a lot of,
So you guys, while I have this camera, what other story should I? Like what else is?
What else should you
Yeah,
ask him?
yeah. What story did you want to have on?
Well,
On
stories.
record.
see here, there's
I've
a
been
lot of,
asking him old stuff on the.
that's Maywood Park.
Do you know of any special stories Dad tells that you want on there? Or, Nita?
Well, yeah, that's better ask him what
This
my
is-
first words were.
This is Maximilian.
You think he'd know?
Yes, I think he would.
Governor's Cup. This
I
was
remember the time when
in the
I-
Governor's
Jeannie
Cup race.
was
The guy laid
about
under the
to-
fence.
And he told her to use her
right
head.
there eating,
Oh, gosh.
and I'd give
Yep.
her egg and mashed it all up. Wasn't a real soft one, but it wasn't real hard either. And she was
That
there
John
eating
Pavolo
and
had
making
been-
a big mess.
I
Dad
think
was
he won
sitting across the
19 out
table
of
and
20.
he said, Jeannie, for goodness sake,
Would
use
do
your
you both
head.
eats?
And so she took that plate and just dumped it
In
right on
6
top
days
of her
later,
head.
he won
And
the
he jumped
Governor's
up and was
Cup.
going after it, and I said, just sit down. She did exactly what you told her to do.
Yeah, he was put his Dad, do you remember what my first words were?
Don't get just 2 minutes, just a minute. Don't get shut out.
What was your first one?
See, told you.
That was a little ditty you were singing in the bathtub.
I know.
That's
And
like
you said I just babbled, and he says, no, she's saying just 3 minutes, don't get shut out. He's-
Bob says that's the last time we're going to the races. We're
Well,
staying here, right?
I don't know why I'm not a
Taking
chronic
these kids
gambler.
to the race.
Yeah, I should make sure Wayne reads that one. I think you've seen that one.
You could ask
About
him
the
anything
younger-
about
uh,
Navy Pier and how we got started out there and how we got started with the, or ask him about how we met Hoffa's bodyguard or Hoffa's nephew.
Jimmy, yeah.
Yeah, you probably didn't know that
Better
story.
get
You
those.
did you know he was trading horses with Hoffa's nephew?
No. So you hear what Adam's telling us?
Yeah.
We don't. I don't know about that.
Well,
I'll check that out later. Got it.
Well, you want
We'll
a story?
see one.
That's one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
That's
He has several
Like-
different topics in there.
like what Adam's saying
Well,
when Mom and I went to a thoroughbred Horsemen's Association dinner in Columbus, and we were looking for a seat, and they had this round tables with about 8 or 10 people at the table. And this one guy said, "Were you looking for a seat? We got 2 extra seats here." So we sat down and joined them, and this was Ted. Can't think of his last name right from the minute. Anyhow,
Was his name Yates?
had the Buckeye stables, and I made quite a deal with him. I got 6 brood mares and the stallion Razor's Edge.
Ted Waite.
Ted Waite, yeah. And just a handshake. Well, anyhow, sometime later, I was at Thistledowns in Cleveland when Super Demon was in the race, and I ran across this Ted Waite, and he said, well, he had a horse in the next race. He said, you ought to win. He said, why don't you come down and get your picture taken with it? So I went down to the winner's circle with him and got my picture taken. And when I come out of the winner's circle, this Jim Fullenkamp was the head investigator for the racing commission, and I know him from Raceway Park. He was in there quite often, you know. So I come out. He said, "Bob, I need to talk to you when you get a chance." So I went over and he said, how did you happen to know Ted Waite? And I told him. He said, well, you know who Ted Waite is, don't you? And I said, yeah, he has Buckeye stables. No, he said, I mean, you know who Ted Waite really is? I said, well, I don't know what you mean. Well, he said, he's Jimmy Hoffa's nephew. He said, I hope any dealings with you didn't have any problem with him. I said, nope, just a handshake.
wow.
But
And he gave you a couple horses for the first 2 colts?
6 mares.
He gave you 6 mares?
Yeah, he got the first colt out of them, and then the mares were mine.
Okay.
And but I'll go back a little further back. when I went to Painesville to finish up a meet, and Plug Hood had worked a Painesville meet, and he was supposed to start another meet in New Hampshire, I think it was. Anyhow, I called and wanted to know if I'd finish up the last 2 weeks of that meet up there, so I went up, and he had a room in it was a big white house. It had, I think, maybe just 5 or 6 rooms in it, and it had a big dining room down on the first floor. And on Saturday nights they had that usually had a little 3-piece band, or some vocalists, some entertainment on Saturday nights.
Mm-hmm.
So the first Saturday night I was there, I went back to the hotel, and I went down, stopped in the, what'd they call it?
Lounge?
The lounge, yeah. And the place was packed, and there was no seats. And I walked in, and this one guy was sitting there by a table by himself, and he said, "Judge." And it kind of shocked me. I didn't know how he knew I was a judge. He said, "Judge," he said, you need a seat, join me. He said, so I sat there with him. He's kind of a nice guy, and the next Saturday night I went back in, and the same guy was sitting there. So I joined him, and I asked him, I said, what do you do? What's your business? He said, I'm Jimmy Hoffa's bodyguard. He said, if you get in any kind of problem in Cleveland, he said, anything short of murder, just call me, and I have you out of jail within an hour.
My gosh.
And then it was a coincidence that several years later, this other deal run into Jimmy Hoffa's nephew. And they never did find Jimmy Hoffa.
Swimming with the fishies.
I think he's at Giant Stadium, isn't he?
He's at the old Giant Stadium.
Tell the story.
In the cement.
Yeah.
Did somebody call you one time to go spend some time at a racetrack that had a lot of dirty goings on there? It was a racetrack next to a riverbank or something, and
That's Henderson.
No, I think maybe what you mean is Chester Boyle. Well, there's 2 different things. Chester Boyle was one of them, and he was going to blow the top off of a kind of a betting ring, and they assigned a state highway patrolman to take him back to his room every night after the races. But before that, there was a guy, I can't think of his name right now, that when I worked the first meet at Toledo, and then they bring another judge in for the second meet because I didn't have enough days off at the post office. Anyhow, this guy the next year came down one night, just came down to visit the judge's stand at Toledo, and he said, well, Bob, he said, I've got the goods on these guys. He said, I'm going to blow racing wide open next week in Detroit. And I said, well, you better have all your ducks in order. I said, you're talking about with a pretty tough bunch. He said, I got the goods on them. He said, they won't be able to bother me because I'm going to have them all in jail. The next week, they found him in the front yard of he was in a rooming house there in Detroit. He had both legs broken. He's a guy that wore a lot of jewelry and always carried quite a bit of cash. they didn't bother any of that. They just were sending a message to him that this, both legs were broken. He couldn't appear against them, so that was his last day at the.
But I know what you mean. You said something about you
There-
went to
there
the
was-
barn and told the horsemen to.
They're going to be checking the stalls and the tack rooms and everything the next day. You remember when you went to?
Oh, I was there when I went to Audubon.
And that's in Henderson.
They'd had a lot of problems, and I called a meeting of the horsemen. The first day I was there, and I said, "Well, I've been hired to come down here. I understand that there have been some things going on that there's been some rule violations that are, you know, and things that need straightening out." And I said, one of them is drug violations. So I said, I'm giving you notice now that we're going to have barn searches 2 or 3 times a week. And I said, we'll shake the pill to see what barn number and what stalls will. And I said, then there's some of them that will search just because I think we should search. But I said, I'm giving you an advance notice that there won't be any barn searches for the next 2 days. So I'm telling you, you better go through your trunk of your automobile, the glove compartment, the behind the moldings in your tack rooms, because anything we find there, you're going to be in serious trouble. But I won't have any barn searches or any searches for the next 2 days. This will give you a chance to clean out everything. So I'm just giving you a fair warning that and the next morning, Eddie Morgan, I'd known him before, came in the judge's office, and he said, "Judge, there's a dike along the Ohio River, between the racetrack and the Ohio River." And he says, if you're wearing tennis shoes, I'd advise you to, if you take a walk down on that dike, don't be wearing tennis shoes, because he says you don't know how many needles and syringes went over that dike last night.
Right.
I remember you telling a story one time of you weren't the normal judge. You weren't the judge that was usually there. And they actually made a special announcement that the judge didn't like that race. And didn't you tell somebody you wanted the horses tested, that they had to come back and get drug tested? And someone, well, you don't mean the winner. And you said, I mean
No, that wasn't the deal. I know what you're talking about. But we had a race that looked bad. And even the winner didn't go in qualifying standards for the meet. In other words, you had to go a qualifying mile like in 2:08 for trotters. And this race went in 2:11, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I knew I didn't have anything to go on. I didn't have any, but I just knew that the race had been set up because somebody had told me, they'd come in and said, well, anyhow, I knew the race just didn't look right. And I called down the paddock, and told the paddock judge, I said, put every horse in the race on the steward's list. He said, oh, but the winner? I said, no, including the winner. And I never heard us squawk. You see it, they didn't race for enough money that they had to race a couple times a week. Well, if they had to go a qualifying race, that knocked them out of 2 or 3 races. So
that's the stewards list. They have to do a qualifying race.
yeah, they had to go a qualifying race before they were eligible to re-enter again. So that knocked them out of a
Chance to win some money.
couple of weeks races. But I never heard a squawk from any of them. They all went their qualifying races and got qualified. But they knew it sent a message to the horsemen. They knew that I knew that the race wasn't legit.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't file any charges or make any. I didn't have anything to go on.
But they were all.
If I fined anybody or
qualified.
suspended anybody, they'd appeal it, and I'd lost the appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So. That's Scott Agers, the presiding judge at Philadelphia now. He was a clerk down there at the time. And he walked over and shook my hand, and he said, I've respected you before, but he said, I sure got a lot of respect for you now.
Okay, I know this isn't a horse-related story, but let's hear about that graduation test.
Oh,
Theory
gosh.
page.
About what?
When you graduated high school and all those people lost their theses.
Yeah.
And they couldn't graduate without it.
Well, I lost mine too.
I know it.
Well, tell the story.
Tell these guys that haven't
So we have
heard,
it on tape.
so they haven't heard about.
He didn't, and I
I
didn't
I
make
know
any
Jamie
guilt.
doesn't know.
Yeah,
I said,
look,
I
look.
said, I've heard this.
Oh,
You
okay.
have?
I don't think I
All
have.
right.
Never heard of
Kristen
it.
has to hear the
We'd had-
story.
We'd had
Or Allison.
2 or 3 weeks to get this thesis or whatever it was done, and Ruth Fry was a literature teacher
This is high school stuff.
in high school, and she said, made the announcement that anybody that didn't have their theses turned in the next day would not graduate, or at the end of the week, something like, would not graduate. So we called a meeting down at Houck's Drugstore. Ted Kirsting and Hugh Fry and Dick Agner and myself. And we decided there was only one way that she couldn't like June Shottle and Jane Eastman, the top ones in the class, if they didn't have their thesis turned in, she couldn't do it.
Not graduate the whole class.
Not let them graduate. So after Pete done the basement, there at the school had windows at ground level, into the basement. So after Pete made his rounds and be sure all the windows were locked, Ted Kirsting went down in the basement and unlocked one. So that night we got in there and went through the desks and found every thesis that we could find. Like there was June Shondell's and Jane Eastman's and Martha Felke. We found those 3 of them. And we took them down the basement and threw them in the furnace. They had coal fire furnaces. And the next morning, these girls were all crying and sobbing. They weren't going to be able to graduate. They didn't have a thesis to turn in. So I felt so bad that mine got burned up in the
They got yours too.
What?
They must have got yours too, huh?
Yeah, they got mine. They got Ted Kirsting's. And,
Did they ever know that they were burned up? Or
no,
they didn't know what happened to them?
They didn't
nobody ever
admit
knew
to
what happened to
anything
them.
until years and years and years later.
Yeah, did you ever tell them that like 20 years later? Did you ever tell those?
Not
Classmates?
Not till all the rest of them died.
He wasn't gonna rat on him.
Someone would throw it out the window.
And then there was a time that I don't think he was in on that. That was before his time, maybe when they led the cow
That's yeah.
up to the belfry in that school.
Jim.
It was about 3-story school.
What?
The school they had about 3 stories, didn't it?
Yeah,
Was that the old Ottawa Public?
Yeah.
yeah. It had a gymnasium, a gym up on the top floor. But the Jim Pope and some guys, they were 3 or 4 classes ahead of ours. They led this cow up the steps into the gym and tied her to the bell rope.
Cows
That
go up
rang
and
the
come
bell.
up and down. Oh, jeez.
Pete rang the bell the next day, and the cow started bawling. And you could lead it up, but you couldn't lead them down. And they got a piano moving company on Lima to come lower it down over the side.
You hear about those
You know, you
stories,
always
but
see those piano moving companies on commercials, but that's usually.
You think that kids today are so much worse than kids ever were, but they'd have been suspended and they'd have been kicked out,
They'd have been expelled and probably prosecuted.
They'd have gone to juvie hall.
Somebody would have prosecuted.
Yeah, but like
Gym floor.
Dick Light one day was.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was ahead of me a couple of years, and he had a problem working on a problem on the blackboard, and anyhow, T.I. Curtis was the superintendent, and the assembly room was on, like I said, the basement windows were half. And then another classroom was above that. T.I. Curtis was the superintendent, threw Dick Light right out the window. And he grabbed onto he grabbed onto the windowsill with both hands, and Curtis picked up a dictionary and hit him on the hands. And dropped. So talk about. Well, the
I'm
kids
gonna
were
try that
mad.
this week.
Yeah, they got their own discipline.
Out of the second-story window.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
I always thought it was a nun that threw him out the window.
No.
It was
He
the
didn't-
superintendent that did
He
it.
didn't go to Catholic school.
No,
Well, I don't know.
At that school.
So I thought before the 50s they were all nuns.
Yeah.
Well, this was Ottawa Public School.
Okay.
He was Catholic.
Wow.
Or before the 50s, whenever you guys were in school.
Yeah. Back in the olden days.
Before dirt was dirty.
That one prison. Don't get any ideas, Jeannie.
I think I can't. Not
And then you should
gonna
tell
work.
them the story that John Sager told that one night when we went out with them. No, on second thought.
You gotta tell it.
Probably not.
With John Sager.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good, guys. I don't think we heard this one.
He was the starter. He was the starter at Cleveland when I was working Cleveland. And one night after the races, he and his wife and Mill and I, we always went. We went to the Roundhouse, they called it. It was a big, and it had I tried to think of the name of it before. Like the place was full. They had a little dance band in there, I think. And what am I trying to say? It was the
Lobby, the lounge, or what?
the lounge or whatever. Anyhow,
The ballroom type of thing?
yeah, like a ballroom. The place was packed, and we had a table kind of up toward the front, and the band was on intermission, and somebody in the band or the guy that the master of ceremonies had just told a story, and he said didn't go over a while, and he said, "You people in the audience, said, probably some of you guys are better storytellers than I am." And he said, "If you got one, now's the time." And as John Sager stood up, he's a big, tall guy, good-looking fella, and he stood up and he said, "Did you ever hear about the Fakarwi Indians?"
The what?
The Fakarwi Indians. He said, "This Indians, there were a bunch of, they're moving them to a different reservation." And he said one day this one group got lost from the main group, and he said every morning when they were trying to find their way back, every morning
The big Indian chief would stand
he'd
up.
get up to the highest point around and go, "We're the Fakarwi." That's how they got their name.
I knew that was going to say that.
Can you imagine? And I can just see Bill crawling under the table.
So I'm going to tell my mom's story then. You know which one I'm going to tell? They're in the old house. You guys want to? We're in the old house, and somebody came. This was before. Yeah, you got
Here, you want me to hold?
before I really knew what what dirty jokes were all about or something. But this is a true story. Some guy comes to the door. He was going to pick up some horses or something, and he wanted to pick up. He was going to use our trailer or something, and the trailer wouldn't work. The hitch wouldn't work right. Mom goes, "Well, here, take these out and try these on your balls." She turns and looks at me. "Did you hear what I said?" You burst out laughing. Then you're over at the table. You're washing the dishes, and you go, "I told that guy to go try these on his balls." And then you just burst out laughing again, and I still didn't know it. And I bet you laughed to yourself for 20 minutes. You can go, "Can you believe what I said?" But I didn't quite get it yet. So I think I just remember this because years later I figured out what was so funny. You were bent over laughing. I can't believe I said that to that guy.
I can't believe I did either. I'm not sure of that.
Take these out and try these on your balls. See how they feel.
That reminds me of when they got their mail, when they moved in here and they got their mailbox rigged up, and they put these little balls on the mailbox so that they could tell when the guy brought the mail that they would drop down, and mom looks out the window and goes, "Bob, your balls are hanging out."
I never did. You make
You did too.
I don't remember what the mailbox was.
Because put something about the flag you didn't know us, but you put those inside the mailbox and you could tell when the mail had been there or not.
Gosh.
And then you cracked.
Like when Eric had this dog named Nuts. He brought his dog over here and he's running around the backyard being all crazy, and he's looking out the window. "Look at my nuts out there."
Well, I just still can see you bent over washing dishes and just burst out laughing. Oh, gosh. Well, what other stories have we heard that are?
What was the one
Now,
about
my
the
two
other?
little granddaughter's not going to think too much for grandma anymore.
She's old enough now, Mom. We can the facade is over.
Well, you didn't mean to say it. That's the best part.
I know.
What, Anita?
There was another judge one time. You were telling us not too long ago. He was always cranky and mean and rude to the drivers or whoever.
Oh, big
And
heavy set
it was
guy.
like, I don't remember where it was even that you had to go and work with at one time, and said he'd go in and I was trying to figure out how come people are putting sugar in my gas tank, or every night I go out my tires were sliced, or
Oh, you know who that was?
That's Chester Boyle.
Yes.
oh, it was the same one.
Yeah, I drove into Raceway Park one night. On the way in, there was,
Chester
I
and
met a
Julian
pickup
too.
truck that had some kids in the back end, and they threw it was a beer can or a rock or something, hit my windshield, put a thing about that big around on the windshield. Chester pulled up beside me. And he said, "Well, you know who that was. That was that guy that we fined $100 last night, and he was he thought he was really mistreated and didn't deserve it." And he said, I said, "No, it wasn't him." I said I started to turn around to chase him, and I thought, what would I do if I caught him? You know, 3 or 4 guys in the back of a pickup.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, he said, "You've never had anybody do anything like that to you?" He said, "I've had," I forget, he said how many tires, he had flat tires, and he had sugar in his gas tank a couple times, and he said he just bought a new car, and they threw a Molotov cocktail on the back seat,
Oh, God.
set it on fire.
He's
And he said, "You mean you've been a judge all these years and nothing like that ever happened to you?" I said, "No." I said, "I can tell you the difference." He said, "How do you explain that?" I said, "Well, that's real simple." I said, "I try to be a nice guy and you're just a horse's ass."
But the problem
This is
is,
truth.
he's the guy that he enjoyed putting people in their place and being
Yeah.
nasty.
Oh, yeah.
And Dad would be more like, "I'm sorry, I have to do this. It's my job. I have to enforce the rules." You know,
That's
Dad would probably apologize that he had to fine him.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then he would always
They'd be
say
like, "No."
in a subtle way, instead of saying thank you or something, "Fuck you very much."
There she goes again, our Mom.
Real fast, you know, so they
Yeah,
always
when-
thought he said thank you very much. Fuck you very much. But that's not what he said.
Who said that?
Chester Boyle.
So you knew him? Is that why you kind of?
You want me to call him and have him verify that? I'll tell you, he did something that I never believed a judge would do, and he told me we had a race that didn't look right, and he was telling me about when he was out east someplace. The guy came in the judge's office and told him the trifecta was going to be 6-4-2 or whatever. He said, "I looked at the program and there's no way any of these 3 horses were good enough to even be third in the program." And he said, "I just threw it out and just passed over. That was just some guy's rumor." And he said, they're coming through the stretch. And he said, I'm listening to the announcer. And he said, 642, coming just like this guy told him. And he said, I couldn't believe. And he said, then I knew that this race had been fixed. And the trifecta was going to pay something like $3,000 and some dollars. And he said, I threw up the objection sign and tried to buy some time, and I kept thinking, what the heck am I going to do about this? He said, finally it came to me, I got it. He said, I kept looking at the film, and back about the fifth or sixth horse, a couple of them got together. And he said, I threw up the objection sign and disqualified the horse that finished third and placed him fourth. Well, that killed their trifecta, you know.
Yeah.
And he said the guy was just all kind of upset. And Chester said, well, he said, just come in the office after the races tonight and I'll show you the film. So the guy come in, Chester ran the film back. He said, now see, right here, here's where you got into him. The guy said, no, that's not me, I'm back here.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, he said, I've done you a grave injustice. We'll put you back to third. But the betting money had already been
Yeah.
paid out. So,
Yeah.
so you put him back up to third.
Well,
He said the guy couldn't say anything
right.
because I told him
Not even supposed to bet.
that I'd made a terrible mistake and we'd redo we'd change the official placings. We put you back to third.
Wow.
You get third money, which 8% of $2,000 would be.
Wow.
Yeah, would be peanuts.
Right.
12% for third. But I think it was a cheap race, you know.
Yeah.
He said that they had bet these horses. They checked with the mutuals, and they had sold quite a few tickets on that exact combination, you know.
Yeah. More than they typically would.
And it didn't make any sense. None of these
Yeah.
horses looked like they shouldn't even be in the money.
Yeah. Wow.
But I couldn't believe that he.
Well, I can't believe a guy actually came in the office and said
Yeah.
they're going to finish that way.
Well, that was somebody who just maybe didn't have anything to do with it anymore, but just heard that and thought he'd give him a heads up. That he was
Or it was a tattletale.
Oh. Still, because it was wrong. It was
Yeah.
Maybe.
no, I mean it was wrong.
Fix the race.
Yeah, maybe he had a conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might have been somebody that had a legitimate ticket.
Right.
But it was very doubtful because, the odds of those three coming in just exactly like that was
Yeah.
astronomical.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought
more
of.
than those three guys involved.
Yeah.
Everybody in the race.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing the way he did it.
One time our horse finished back, got a really poor trip, and one of the drivers told Mark it just wasn't his week.
Wow.
It was hot.
Said what?
It wasn't our week. I don't know.
Charlie Brown.
I don't know. Might have been.
Charlie Brown, yeah.
It gave a real poor drive when we should have won it for fun, and we didn't, and because it wasn't our turn.
So it's the driver who said that.
I think it was the driver,
Yeah.
like trying to make an excuse for his drive. Once in a while he'd just make a dumb excuse for his drive.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. What was
Is
it?
that
Was
why
it
when I was little, Dad always said Charlie Brown? He's a clown.
that race at Plain City?
No, there was a
at
song
night?
like that.
I'll tell you.
What?
Well, I'll tell you.
Time he raced at Plain City.
Oh,
You talk about one or two incidents like that, but harness racing actually is about as clean as any sport. I mean, you know, all those races that you just heard that we were in,
Yeah.
if there was anything, never once was I ever approached about missing a horse, about laying up or not winning when I could. Never once was I ever approached about trying to fix a race.
yeah.
And it's really squeaky clean, but you just get one or two incidents like that that
Ruined the reputation
ruins the reputations for everybody else.
Yeah.
and everything.
Scott was Peg when she was little. She always said
That year that reservation had
what she said.
29 times first, second, or third, and 32 starts.
Yeah.
You had 19 wins, 3 seconds, and 7 thirds. And Bert Dieters told me, he said, after the end of that year, he said, I would have rather own him than any horse in the United States. He said, I might have won 2 or 3 races with him. But he said I'd have made a lot more money than you did. In other words, he'd have finished 6th or 7th, 3 or 4 times, enough to show any win off of the past performance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the odds would be 40 to 1, put $1,000 on him to win and go.
Huh.
Like that Chalmers Harmon from Harmon Sign Company at Wasion, he had 2 real good trotters that year. And he only won a couple of races, but Bert and him were good friends, and Bert told me that Chalmers bet $1,000 on that horse last week to win, and he got interfered with, and he just, no chance he was going to win, so he ended up, I think, 6th or 7th with him. The next week the odds were even greater, so he put another 1,000 on him and won with him.
Yep.
So and if
It's
he
10
had
years, Dad.
if he had 41 and put 1,000 on him, that's $40,000.
Wow. Yeah. So what did you say? Was this a race when Dad was racing?
Plain City.
Yeah, because I came over and was talking about it when I went over to Jamie's one time, and we went to the pastime park downtown Plain City.
Was what?
And they still have part of the original racetrack there. They actually made like part of it a jogging path. They have a long jogging path, but the old track, just a little section.
What are we talking
So
about?
he's-
I couldn't hear you.
The Plain City racetrack.
Yeah.
So
Pastime Park, and I was telling you, I took Elena and Owen there that one day. I said, tell Grandpa we went walking on the track at the Plain City racetrack.
Yeah.
And then you were saying that you raced there one time at night?
Yeah.
That big,
That's one time that I had Fire Dome as a 2-year-old, and I had in 16 starts I had 8 wins, 6 seconds, a third, and a fourth. And the night that I was fourth with him was at Plain City, and the lights went out.
God.
We're coming around the last turn, and the lights went out, and you know, like here, if these lights went out all at once, you'd be
Your
pitch
eyes.
dark.
Right.
Yeah.
And a few minutes later, your
Yeah.
eyes got accustomed, you could see a little bit.
Yeah.
But this fire dome took such a strong hold of you that when the lights went out, I was sure I was going to run over somebody. And I just hung on to him and slowed him down. And when I got around the turn enough, the the lights in the midway, like the Ferris wheel and the merry-go-round, those lights were all on. Just the racetrack lights that went out.
Yeah.
So I got around the turn enough where I could see where I was going. Why, I had him pulled up to last, and I cranked him up and finished fourth. I knew I finished third, but they didn't have a photo finish. Didn't have any electricity. And they called me fourth.
Wow.
So
That one silver platter that I got in there, that's got 3 compartments in it, that came from Plain City.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
you want?
That relish tray
That
thing.
one silver relish tray that we got came from Plain City.
Yeah.
Wait,
That
that's a
was
fair?
reservation, wasn't it?
That's the town Jamie and Grant, they were Jamie.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's just called Pastime Park. But it's the, so part of the racetrack is there, and they even have a map, and like, well, this was the farrier's building, and this was this building, and almost the museum, but you can actually camp there too. And then it's right, they just built the new city pool. They built the city pool, it's right there at that
But
park.
this was a fairgrounds?
Yeah.
Plain City Fairgrounds before? That's what it was?
Or something,
Or-
yeah. Or was it, I don't know.
Oh well.
Yeah, I would like for Mark to heard does.
Well, he'll get some copies.
We
Eventually.
recorded it.
Huh?
We recorded
Good
it.
thing you told me.
Jeannie tape recorded it, so
Well,
But the races, I'll make copies for all, for everybody. You can all have
Yeah.
a CD of
How
the...
did, how did you show that? How did you show that through these speakers over here?
No, I'll show you. Just a second.